Good morning, everyone. My name is Hadil Hnainia. I'm a first-year PhD student in Manouba University, Tunisia. So today I'm going to present for you my research paper entitled The Role of Institutional Factors in Shaping the Relationship Between Economic Policy Uncertainty and Energy Consumption in Gulf Countries, an Empirical Analysis. So this research is conducted by me, co-authored with Professor Sami and Mensi. So let's start our presentation. So first of all, we're going to begin with a brief introduction, followed by the context and its significance. In the third part, we're going to see the problem statement and our research question, and then the hypotheses formulated to address. To do a brief literature review, followed by the data and methodology used to conduct our research, and then we're going to see the key results in a result and discussion part, and finally, we're going to conclude with some policy application. So I've been always impressed by the Gulf Cooperation Council and how they are renowned for their substantial energy reserves and economic vitality. So they hold collectively 30% of the world's total oil reserves and remarkably 20% of the total proven natural gas reserves. However, among all this richness, there is an evolving landscape with unpredictable challenges. So this region has witnessed this increase in energy demand, while it is paralleled by an increase in economic policy uncertainty, a trend which extends all its impacts on all the facets of our lives. So as we ponder through the potential impacts of this type of uncertainty, it becomes evident to see its potential impact on the energy sector. And also an important variable is the institutional factors. So we want to see how can the institutional factors interact in this to navigate the turbulent waters. So moving on, for the context, we have chosen to work on the GCC member states, which are 6 of the Arab countries. This choice was made due to the fact that the GCCs are the world's most energy-dependent countries, and this highly dependence on the energy consumption make them highly sensible to the fluctuations and to the uncertainties in the global energy markets. Also, reviewing the literature on the EPU energy consumption nexus, and especially those that took into consideration the institutional factors as moderators in this relationship, we have found that the literature is still surprisingly too limited. So this knowledge gap highlighted the need for further empirical investigation. For the problem statement, as I was saying, this increase in the ambiguity and unpredictability in economic policies will create an environment in which energy-related decision will become very uncertain, and this uncertainty will have far-reaching implications on the sustainability and also on the economic stability in the Gulf countries. So our research aims to examine the relationship between the economic policy uncertainty and energy consumption in Gulf countries, with a specific focus on the mediating role of the institutional factors, as they are the bedrock of the economic stability. And also we want to aim to provide policymakers with key insights to make robust and effective policies and strategies. So, of course, our fundamental research question, it is what is the impact of economic policy uncertainty on energy consumption in the Gulf countries, and how can this impact be mediated by the institutional factors? To address this research question, we formulated 3 main hypotheses. The first one is that EPU has a negative and significant impact on energy consumption. The second one is the government effectiveness and regulatory quality will have a positive and significant impact on energy consumption. And finally, these 2 institutional factors will have a negative impact on the link between energy consumption and EPU nexus. So for the literature review, we begin with reviewing the studies on the first link between EPU and energy consumption, and we found mixed results. For instance, we found some authors that have found that the link is positive, such Adams et al. In 2020, while others have found that this link is negative, such Rong et al. In 2022, and even others that have found that it's insignificant and negative, such Appiah et al. In 2021. Moving on to the second link is the institutional factors as moderators for the link between APU and energy consumption. The literature is surprisingly so limited, and we found only 2 recent works of 2023. The first one is of Jiang et al. That have found that EPU has a negative effect on green growth, and institutional quality moderate this impact. And the second one is of Ali et al. That have found that EPU decreases environmental quality, while the institutional quality moderate this impact. For our last relationship is the institutional factors energy consumption nexus. So we have found some studies that have observed a positive relationship between government effectiveness, for instance, and energy consumption, such Li et al. In 2022, while others like Li in 2017 have found that this relationship is negative. So moving for the data and methodology, we used data spanning the period from 1996 to 2021 for 5 of the Gulf countries. Bahrain was excluded due to the lack of the data, and this is the source of our data. Moving on for the model specification, we first begin with a general model specification. Here, as you can see, we included the interaction term that appears like institutional quality multiplied by the EPU to see the moderating role of the institutional factors. And then the overall impact is calculated by determining the partial derivative of the equation 1 in relation to EPU. And then we opted for the panel RDL model due to its ability to analyze the short-term and the long-term relationships in the panel data. And it is generally characterized by the following form. And then we reconfigure the equation 3 into an error correction equation. For the results, for our main results, first of all, we conducted correlation analysis and multicollinearity testing. So we found strong correlation between the 2 institutional factors. This is why we separated them into 2 separate models. So in total, we have 4 models, 2 for each institutional factors and 2 for each interaction term. And then we tested for the cross-sectional dependence, and we have found strong cross-sectional dependence. This was crucial for choosing the generation of the panel unit root test, and we have chosen the second generation of panel unit root test, and it indicated that we have a mix of an order of integration between the variables of 0 and 1, and our dependent variable is integrated in order 1. So until here, all the panel RDL model conditions were verified. So we opted for the pooled mean group PMG estimator. So in the long run, we have found interesting results. For instance, we have found that the economic policy uncertainty is found positive and significant in all our models. This means that an increase in economic policy uncertainty will lead to an increase in energy consumption. So this result can be explained by the fact that in the GCC, they are highly dependent on the oil revenues to fund their governments and to support their economies. So during periods of high economic policy uncertainty, governments may intervene in the energy markets by maintaining or increasing subsidies to keep their domestic fuel and electricity prices stable. And this intervention may need a surge in energy consumption. Moving on, we have found that both institutional factors are positive and significant. So for the government effectiveness, for instance, this can be explained by a good governance will prioritize economic expansion rather than sustainable development in the GCC. And also for the regulatory quality, we can say that high regulatory quality implies a stable and transparent regulatory framework. Moving on to the last result, we have found that the interaction term of government effectiveness is negative and significant. So this means that a good governance will interact to counteract the potential increase of energy consumption due to the high economic policy uncertainty by fostering policies that aim to moderate the excessive energy use. Moving on to the short-run the short-run results. So we have found only the interaction term of the regulatory quality is negative and significant. This can be explained by that the regulatory bodies and businesses may be more responsive to the changes in the energy consumption due to the economic policy uncertainty. Moving on, also we conducted Dimitrescu and Herlin panel causality test, and it also showed interesting results. For instance, we have found that the CO2 emission will cause both the economic policy uncertainty and the economic growth. And finally, for the conclusion, we concluded with three strands of the policy applications. The first one is the uncertainty applications. We want for policymakers to account for the nuanced effects of EPU and to incorporate it into policy considerations, because if the Gulf Cooperation Councils aim for total decarbonization, it is limited by the potential impact of the economic policy uncertainty. The second strand of the policy application is institutional factors applications. We want for the policymakers to adapt more, to craft more adaptable energy policies, and also the sustainable development is not only a global cause, it's also an imperative case for the GCC countries. And finally, for the last policy application is energy innovation applications. We encourage to invest more in the research and development, and finally to go towards energy transition strategies. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you very much for being very much on time. So now we will hear the prospects of the green transition in the Arab region by Mohamed. So the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to speak about the prospects of the green transition in the Arab world. This paper is part of a bigger project on the green transition in the region, in which I conducted some work on Tunisia, Morocco, and also collecting some data about the Emirates. But this paper here is more empirical. It uses more mathematical modeling and econometric data for the whole region. So you can consider it as a starting point for the project or an introductory paper for the whole project. So as you always, or you might have heard more often, that renewable energy offers great chances for the Arab region, given that the Arab region, Arab countries are richly endowed with renewable energy resources. There are many countries, like for example Tunisia, that have energy shortages or import energy from other countries. So this might minimize the energy demand on imports. Also, a good point is that the cost of the renewable energy is falling because of the learning curve and so on. Even for the countries that are rich in oil resources, it's expected that it's going to be depleted by 2064, and some estimates put it to 2044. So in matters of time, it's not far away. So for North African countries, there's also the prospect of exporting energy to Europe. And for oil-rich Arab countries, there is the possibility of diversification of energy resources and also creating industries and creating linkages between different sectors. So it seems that there are many profits for the whole region from this. My research question is how the comparative power of the various state and society collective actors and their utilities in terms of interest, that's to say, from the green transition affect the prospects of the transition in the Arab world. So I'm going to look at state-society relations as a defining thing for the prospects of, or the probability of the success of the green transition in different countries. And I'm going to focus on three dimensions. The first one is the relative power. So the relative power of the state and the social actors vis-a-vis each other. The second is interest. What is the interest of each of these actors from the energy transition? And the third one is a coordination. whether those who share a similar interest could coordinate with each other or not. So these are like the three dimensions I'm going to focus on. The focus is on the manufacturing and energy production sectors, and the main actors are identified as a state, big business, or what we can refer to as tycoons, and SMEs. So again, I'm going to look at policy coalition in power. The power of a policy coalition is identified by actors' interest, as said, which is potential gains and losses, actors' comparative power, power relations vis-a-vis each other, the organizational power, that's what I mean, and inter-actors coordination, inter-organizational cooperation, and trust. So in terms of actors' interest, I'm looking at three policies. Given that I'm focusing on these players, I'm focusing on the most relevant policies that create somehow interest for these actors. So linkages development is very interesting for the business, whether small business or big business, because the idea is the renewable sector is not only installing solar cells and windmill and so on. No, of course, they need also cables, they need solar panels and so on. And if you can create linkages to the local economy, this means creating more green jobs. And so you can somehow incentivize the local business to be engaged in the process. So linkages development, structural transformation, labor need training because of structural transformation, technological structural transformation. And so if there are certain training programs, they will be motivated to join the process. And then fossil fuel subsidies is rather walking on the other direction. If a country is providing fossil fuel subsidies, of course, it provide a disincentive for the energy transition. So these are the three main policies that I'm focusing on. In terms of power, the state power is identified in its ability somehow in being more powerful and vis-a-vis other actors. That's to say it prevents them from organizing, of course, is a negative aspect, and also the degree of cohesion. So tycoons' power is, tycoons has different sorts of power. One of them is controlling business associations, but also they can have individual power, like when they enter a ministry as a minister or fund election campaigns. So tycoons have different sources of power. Entrepreneurs have only the ability to organize through a business association. And so a broad-based business association would be something that reflects the power somehow, and less fragmented, because if you have different business association, it means that this power is fragmented among conflicting bodies, and the labor is the same. It has no other choice but to have an independent and less fragmented organization. Coordination depends on the ability of having, organizational somehow meetings, something like PPD, for example, public-private dialogues could help this coordination, also history of trust, and so on and so forth. So we can formulate this into a theoretical mathematical equation here, in which we say that the probability of the green transition is dependent on which policy coalition is more powerful, the one with or the one against. And the power of the coalition, again, is identified in terms of the utility and the power, as well as the coordination between the various parties here. And so then we have a sort of maximization of the probability of the green transition in terms of creating a bigger wedge between those who are with, or the coalition of those who are with, in comparison to those who are against. With the constraint being the different allocation for different policies, like again, structural transformation, innovation as a linkage, creating a policy, and so on and so forth. And so from this, we can identify different hypotheses, which is, okay, if you have a higher state dominance, the more the interests of the state, then the higher probability that we have green transition. And then if you have a more independent business associations, the higher the incentive for them in terms of policies of innovation, for example, the higher the green transition. So every time in these hypotheses, we look at the incentive and the power, whether they have the incentive in terms of policy, matching their power or not, and whenever they are both existing, so as if it's the interaction between them, that's to say, then it means then we will have a higher probability of success. The methodology, I translated somehow the insights of the mathematical model into an econometric equation, but not one-to-one. Of course, I had to do some changes to make it more possible to test it. And so here you can see that I have, for example, power as an indicator, and then policy as another indicator, and then the interaction term between the power and policy, and I will treat coordination as one of the indicators in order not to make it more complicated. And the sources of data is varieties of democracy, world development indicators, world government indicators, and others. As for the dependent variable, I have two independent variables. One of them is the sum of the solar and wind energy consumption, but I had to adjust this in terms of population because I cannot compare, for example, the UAE with Egypt. So I took it in terms of million of inhabitants. And then the second is the renewable energy consumption, which is obtained from the world development indicators. But this one, I mean, I put more relevance for the first one because the second one is renewable energy resources include also, for example, water and things that already was there in the region before this whole talk about energy transition, like the dams and so on. And so the most relevant is actually the first one, but the second one, I put it in, as a form of robustness check. So the focus is more on horizontal policies. Innovation is taken as a creating linkage because if there is innovation, it means that firms can engage more with the sector. Availability of training is for training, structural transformation, and fossil energy subsidization indicators for subsidies on energy. And then the degree of state dominance. I used the reciprocal of voice and accountability. Voice and accountability tests the power of associations to freely organize and to have freedom of speech. So the reverse of it, it means that the state is dominant somehow. So the reciprocal of it, favoritism of government decision will be an indicator for tycoon's power, and this indicator says the degree of how of the government policy is affected or influenced by connected people and connected firms. So it actually reflects good this. And then a pair of other indicators like large encompassing organizations dominated tells how fragmented are the business associations, and then engagement in independent trade unions is a proxy for relative power of labor. And then CSO consultation is an indicator of coordination among the different actors. So it will be hard, of course, to go all here, given the time constraint also. So the results somehow provided evidence for some hypotheses, some not. So for example, the state is likely the most supportive actor for green transition in the Arab region. And the higher its power, the more likely for the green transition to take place. So we have here in the Arab region that the state somehow is leading the process, which is not a secret, of course. And the more its power, somehow, the more the green transition is moving ahead. The negative effect of the other major factors, whenever they are powerful through labor unions or business associations, suggests that the energy transition is not yet integrated into the interest of social actors. So unfortunately, the social actors are not somehow motivated to join the process. And the presence of a good experience with structural transformation training enhances the chances of the success of the green transition and motivates stronger labor unions to support the transition. So this one of the evidence that if the labor union have already good experience with training programs, it will support this because it probably will create jobs and they can trust the process. And fostering innovation also could motivate business people generally whenever innovation policies are matched by the presence of broad-based and less fragmented business association. So again, if you have okay, 1 minute. The presence of high levels of energy subsidization discourage the support of more powerful labor unions for the transition. And the presence of high levels of energy subsidization increases the resistance of the transition generally whenever the industrial sector is more energy intensive. Okay, so I will not have a time for this. I made a just insights to Egypt, Emirates, and Morocco, but maybe another time. Just reading the policy implications. The energy transition would be fostered by policies that targets innovation, linkage development, and professional training of structural transformation nature. This is especially the case where business associations and labor unions are relatively independent, less fragmented, and more representative of their respective actors. Okay, sorry. Last 2 sentences. Fossil fuel subsidization should be minimized or even replaced with a carbon tax, and empowering social actors and having a more balanced and collaborative state-society relations would augment the positive effects of the suggested policies. And thanks a lot for your attention.
Excellent, thank you very much. So now we will have our colleague Korhan, who will discuss these 2 papers. Thank you.
It's mine. Now, which one I'm supposed to, which button?
That's better.
Okay. First of all, I'm not used to microphone. I'm not sure whether I can manage it, but I will try my best because we had very good 2 presentations. Hopefully, I won't be a disappointment for these beautiful guys. Anyhow, today we have 2 papers, so I guess we have plenty of time. So I will spend 2-3 minutes by explaining the importance of these papers. So one by one, I will tell you. Actually, I won't be criticizing that much, but I will share some of my ideas with my colleagues. Hopefully, I will contribute a bit. First of all, I served as the reviewer of these papers. So we began this process a lot of months ago. So we began with 20 papers almost, and we elected some of them. Then we have around 10, and for the second round, we read these papers one more time. And I became discussant, so I read the final version of the papers 2 times. Anyhow, so I have seen these papers. I have seen my wife for the last 3 months. Maybe I have an emotional connection with these papers. Because of this, most probably today I will be telling you a lot of beautiful things about the papers and some opinion. Maybe I will contribute a bit. First of all, by the way, while talking about your paper, I will tell it so you will understand. But at first, I want to tell you something. My relationship with your paper is my relationship with my ex-girlfriend. So I will explain. Sometimes I like it. Green economy, today we are talking about renewable energy and green economy. Basically, in order to make a long conversation short, we have two main problems with energy-related issues. One of them is environmental degradation. The other one is uneven distribution of energy. So we have a golden key, which is called green transition, which can solve both of the problems simultaneously, which is very nice. And authors discuss, researchers discussed in their paper in detail. They say a lot of things, sustainable, its importance about sustainable growth, economic benefit, a lot of opportunities for the countries. But I just want to touch one more point. Maybe in our future research we can touch this point. I find it somehow important. So our dreams might come true. What's our dreams? For the last maybe 100 years, a century, one of the main dream of macroeconomics is economic convergence. So we have been expecting the guys at the back will converge. Somehow it happened for some countries, but we don't have a global convergence most of the time. But what's going to happen with this renewable energy? As you mentioned in your paper, some countries are scarce resource, some of them have a lot of oil, but fortunately these natural resource scarce countries have opportunity to use wind and solar power. So as a result, we might have a balancing energy distribution, global income redistribution, trade positions might be different, so there will be a more balance, and maybe we might have a new wave of convergence globally, which means that especially in these days, I found the last point very important. If a country has a lot of oil, it's a very nice idea to export democracy to that country, right? But if it is solar rich, so most probably it's not gonna happen, so which might be a quite contribution to after the importance of the topic, I want to tell you something about Arab countries. Actually, it is a global idea, but specifically today we are talking mostly about the Arab world. So we have oil-rich and oil-poor countries. For oil-rich countries, oil-poor countries, the solution is quite simple. We don't have energy resources, so what are we supposed to do? We have to transform. And also, again, in your paper, you touched that point. It is quite important. What is going to happen for oil-rich countries? Because we believe that green transition, it's not like an urgent situation for these countries, which is wrong. Why? And according to your research, Hadil, there is 91% correlation between energy consumption and carbon emission in your countries, which means that this is not sustainable. So at some point, even the oil richest countries will have to transform. And when is it going to happen? Yes, depletion of resources, that is the final point. But before that one, something else is going to happen. We don't need to wait until that time. For example, we will have international pressure because of sustainability issues. And even before that, most probably, because of learning curve, we will have cost considerations. So if you begin early, most probably you will have a lot of competitive advantage at the end. And also the most probable scenario might be we will be creating a global green economic ecosystem. So each country should join to that ecosystem. Now about the contribution of your papers. I will give you a few numbers, then I will go to the contribution. When we say green renewable energy till 2000, we had a handful of studies. I'm talking about Science Direct research. In 2001, number is 250, but there was a very high increase. Last year, it was more than 10,000, and the first 3-4 months of this year, it is already 5,000. And in cumulation, we have more than 100,000 articles for the last 20-something years. Those include this renewable energy keyword. So what does it mean? There are two insights. The first one, we have breadth and depth of research. We have a lot of information, which is good, but also to make contribution is extremely and getting harder and harder. So I want to congratulate my colleagues a bit for this, but I will begin with Hadil. By the way, there's a Turkish name, it is Halil. And I thought that she was a man. And yesterday she told me, I'm the writer of this paper. I said, no, you cannot, because it's a man. Okay, sorry for that. So you persuaded me. Okay. She takes into account two important factors. One of them is institutional. For the last 2 decades, Rana Cömertpay has been talking about this, so there is no need to repeat, I guess, all these discussions. And the second one is uncertainty as a result of all these financial crises, COVID-19, physical wars, social wars. Then most probably uncertainty will be more and more important. And she's arguing that moderating role of institutional factors is important. Yes. Why? Because there's a financial crisis, and we know that reaction of a country with higher level of institutional quality in compared to lower level institutional quality, they have different reactions. Most probably, we will see the same thing and here. And also, there's one more good thing with your paper. Institutional factors are considered from various perspectives. One of them is governance, the other one is regularity, quality, which is good for confirmation purposes. Now, I have, as I told you, a few concerns. You tried to explain it in your research, I know, but energy consumption is dependent variable and carbon emission is the independent variable. Yes, some guys do that. Generally, my PhD students always say that, okay, there are some guys in the literature, they do it. Yeah, everybody does everything. I don't have any problem with that. And yesterday, one of our colleagues told us a story that somebody told him, okay, we are doing very good research. And you know, time to time, even R squared is more than 1. So sometimes we have that good research. I agree with that. But it doesn't make that much sense, okay? And this is a problem with the causality as well. So this asymmetry between dependent and independent thing. And also, we have some unexpected results. You try to explain them. But for example, there is no causality from GDP, but GDP growth, as far as I know, should increase carbon emission because these are oil-dependent countries, most of them. And there are other sources of uncertainty. Actually, I'm interested in these subjects, so I have a long list. So that's fine, but also for confirmatory purposes, maybe you might add some other proxies in the future. And you examine energy consumption, but maybe green energy consumption might be a good idea to investigate. Not for this one, this research is over, but for your future studies. There are some minor issues. Maybe after this presentation, I can share them in detail because I highlight many of them. But equations, for example, we need a bit notational consistency. So after you take the derivative, okay, I guess I saw a problem. And also hypothesis development, she has an interesting approach. Generally, we say that, okay, variable A has an effect on variable B. So we can accept, we can reject, or maybe it is insignificant. But you are doing in this way, hypothesis 1 is it is affecting, hypothesis 2, it is not affecting, hypothesis 2. If we do that, most probably we will have hundreds of different hypotheses. I'm not sure whether it is a good idea for hypothesis development. Now also, my main concern is about your interpretations and explanations. She is first-year PhD student. Most probably you will be, my first paper was much worse than this one, I told you. Anyway, it was a secret between you and me, but now everybody knows that. Well, in a few years you will be much better than me. But just to contribute, for example, you are saying that there are a lot of minor things with this one. Just an example, moderate level of energy consumption. When we say logarithm and when we say level, I'm a bit confused. And the other one is, you say moderate, most probably there is something in your mind, but in your paper, I'm having difficulty to find a benchmark. Someday, my son asked me whether 65 is lot or not. 65 is, I don't know. Then I noticed that the age of the grandmother. So he is calculating whether she's gonna die soon anyway. So we have, what's that? Reduction in energy consumption. You think that you favor this development actually, but it might mean a lot of things. Lower energy consumption, because of this I'm telling you, maybe renewable energy to include it in your analysis might be better, but it might mean a lot of things actually, and while you are interpreting your results, actually you have this problem. I will show you an example. I'm coming to the end, I promise. Last slide. Institutional variables, for example, government effectiveness, increased energy consumption. According to your view, it is not good. Government effectiveness decreases the effect of EPU, you celebrate it, and then what is our decision about government effectiveness? So is this a good idea to reduce government effectiveness to make the environment better? Now, in the next slides, I will show you something just as an example. EPU leads to an increase in energy consumption. Okay. You tried to explain very hard. I noticed that because you said that it's against theory, but some people and some of your friends you cited are my friends, so I don't want to mention the names. And then government tends to prioritize economic development. Such efforts stimulate energy-intensive economic activities. If you check this second one and third one, at some point you are happy with government effectiveness, it is doing something positive, and the same government effectiveness is doing something negative after in some places. Anyway, so after the presentation, we might talk if you want. By the way, now Mohamed or Ismail, which one? Oh yeah, so okay, then I will choose Mohamed. It's very easy for a Turkish person. Anyway, his contribution, actually, he is doing something quite beautiful. Why? Generally, for the last maybe 10 years to 15 years, we are doing such kind of studies. Let's examine the determinants of something, and this variable, that variable, one more, and at some point, we forget about the theory. He is doing a good combination of theory, empirical application, plus he is investigating two important countries as case studies. So this kind of combination, I guess it's a very ideal situation. So that is the one I like it. Also, there are two dependent variables for confirmatory purposes. It is also quite good. By the way, how many minutes? Because, okay. Now, one of the best thing, actually, I can say it for both papers. They have, yes, some econometric or economic message, but at the same time, they have a social and political message. Actually, I like it, especially in your paper. It sounds quite nice. And we have power struggles and conflicting interests among various actors. Actually, I come from this tradition. My undergrad study was political science. Because of this, I like this old school conflict of classes discussion. I like that part, and I believe that we have always social foundations. And you touch that point. Maybe if I were you, just an contribution, I might talk about this creative destruction thing, because we need, as I will follow this old theory, creative destruction is something good. But sometimes there are some coalition, as you mentioned, there is a domestic consensus among the winners of fossil fuels, so they can stop this transformation, which might be quite dangerous. So somebody should interfere in that power balance, and these guys might be, and they are reported, actually you couldn't present that part of the research, so I recommend all the listeners to read these two papers, so they will have a better idea. By the way, I will tell you something. If you read one of this paper, please read the other ones, because interestingly they complement each other. So it might be a good idea to read. Okay, my main problem, actually I send you my comments. After that point, actually it's done. The research is done. but I just want to share, your data set is quite small. With this, and your model is large, so with that much small sample might create a lot of problems. I won't open an econometric discussion now, but especially in your results, I feel that this economic significance is a bit marginal. Okay, so you also do data imputation. Actually, I don't favor this one as well. Why? Because we are filling the gaps. Again, sometimes my students said that, okay, you say that this method is wrong, so why do we have such a method? Yes, but we are filling some gaps, but it's not real data. It is just an educated guesses, actually. We are combining and dividing into two, or there are some other methods. At the end of the day, it is not real data, so your sample size is small. Plus, there is data imputation. Things are getting a bit dangerous to me. And third one, sequential elimination. I know that this method is better than some other sequential methods, but again, when I combine this small data set plus imputation and plus this method, when we combine it, so there will be a combo. So we might be at the edge of data mining, maybe not because of this. I'm telling you, this relationship is, anyway, but my wife doesn't know that, so it's a secret between us. And also, if I could say, in terms of econometrics, I'm not talking about variables, in terms of econometrics, if I could see some robustness effort, it might be much better for me. Actually, you are explaining. I didn't do GMM because of that reason. There's no endogeneity, and I didn't do random effects. Okay, I read all of them several times, but still, if I could see some robustness effort in terms of econometrics, I would be a bit more happier. And now, actually, I'm an econometrically inclined person, so really I wanted to discuss about, okay, where is your lag terms, nonlinearity, omitted variables, interaction effect, threshold, moderation, mediation, all other stuff, and I want to express all my knowledge about econometrics, but unfortunately with that data set, we cannot talk about, even your model might be too large to be carried by this data set. Maybe if you solve that problem, this research might be much, much better, so you can provide a lot of more results, I guess. Now, you did a lot of beautiful things, as I told you, but while reading your paper, time to time, I told to myself, oh, maybe, isn't it too much? Because I want to do this thing plus the other thing and one more thing. And when we say, okay, theoretical discussion, 10 pages long, because of this, there is a kind of imbalance. For example, while reading basically it's an empirical study, so I wanted to see your sample, but I have to read half of the paper. So to understand, it's from 2000 and something to 2022, because it's not in the abstract, it's not in introduction, so somewhere in the middle. Why? Because if you give all the necessary information in your abstract, most probably it will be 1 page long, so you excluded some. Myself, isn't it too much? Or it's your choice actually, but it is, for example, too much ambitions for me. Maybe I'm lazier than you, I don't know. And also during your research, I feel that, for example, there is no literature review because of this. I cannot see what is the place of your research in the existing literature. So while trying to do something too much, you are missing some points of some pros and cons. And also I checked your, there are a lot of significant variables, that's fine, but when I check economic significance, if I'm not mistaken, it is many of them 0, 0, 0 something, right? Okay, 2 or 3 zeros. I'm a bit suspicious about this economic significance. It might be because of the data set, by the way. And also a small point, but in table 4, there are some numbers, they are stagnant for the last 12 years, so nothing has changed. 25, 25, 25, most probably 13 point something, point something. Yeah, is it imputation? Probably, okay, okay. And there are some minor issues. I don't want to talk about these minor issues, but they are repeated a lot of times. So if you can be a bit careful, so the stable standards and other stuff, maybe it might be better. And if I summarize, okay, you are smiling, it means that my time is, okay, oh, one, oh, okay, my last, oh, less than one, okay, 30 seconds. Okay, I liked political and social messages, and none of these papers I didn't see, any of these papers I didn't, I could see limitations or recommendations for the future studies, but also I have one last thing. When you write your policy recommendation, mostly they should be bounded by your empirical research, because we are not explaining our general opinions in here. If they reflect the result of my research directly, and if they are to the point, so I can feel that, oh, this guy knows his sample, her sample, I feel myself a bit better. I hope I could contribute a bit. Thanks for your understanding.
Thank you very much, Korhan. So now we will be taking slowly all the questions.
So I would like first to thank the presenters for these interesting presentations. I have a comment and two questions for the first presenter. So unfortunately, I haven't read your paper yet, but in your presentation, you kept mixing up mediator and moderator as they were the same thing, which they are not. So a mediator is variable that acts as a channel or a mechanism between two variables. So it channels the effect either partially or fully between a variable and another, while a moderator is an external variable that either enhance, weaken, or even reverse the relationship. But as far as I remember, and correct me if I'm mistaken, in your hypothesis, you're talking about a mediation relationship, while in your econometric analysis, you're using an interaction term. And the concepts of mediation and moderation is not only different in their conceptualization, but like the methodological and the statistical procedure differs. So for the interaction terms, it indeed captures the moderation effect, but definitely it doesn't capture the mediation effect. So either, I don't know whether you're talking about institutional quality as a mediator or as a moderator, but you need to first pick up which relationship you want to analyze, and you use the appropriate methodology. For my first question, so you're using institutional quality, and you're using only two indicators of the worldwide governance indicator. And again, I haven't read your paper. Maybe you're motivating it in the paper, but in the presentation, I haven't heard anything about the motivation. So in literature, either we use the 6 worldwide governance indicator, of course, not in one equation because of the high multicollinearity, but either we estimate the equation one by one, or most commonly, we construct a composite index of the 6 worldwide governance indicator. So why you just chose these two indicators? And for my second question, and maybe I was not following, but you used the panel co-integration model, the Ardell, and like the methodology that is more relying on a time series analysis. So again, what motivates that? Do you have a long panel data or what? So thank you again.
There are 3 questions.
I have a question to the first speaker. Just 3 points. The first point, I wonder whether the econometric methodology is suitable for a very small panel data. You have just 6 countries, and you miss 1 country because of the lack of the data, and you have 5 points. Observed 25 years, you have lags, maybe you have 80 points, 80 observations. So pool mean group, DOLS, all those methods are interesting only for large panel data, particularly with the cross-sectional dimension. You should increase your number of countries. Otherwise, if you say, I just want to look to what's happened to the GCC, I suggest to you other econometric alternative. For example, you can estimate your model using the conditional convergence equation, which is a dynamic model, or VAR modeling. These are potential alternative if you don't want to increase your data to more larger sample, including large developing country case. The second comment is, I don't understand, this comment is maybe linked to the estimation method. The institution have an impact in the long run, but not in the short run. No, this is a little bit misleading, and this may suggest the fragility of the econometric method used. The last point is, as you know, if you consider the key variable in your paper, as I think, is institutions. But institution is a multidimensional concept. You cannot isolate regulation. You put it in a model, it has the positive impact on negative, and you say, this is successful. I think institution is multi-level dimension. So you should, in the model, include several dimensions of institution, and also as a robustness check of this key variable of your model, there are alternative measures in different data sources. So it would be very important to, as a robustness check, to introduce in the model several alternative measures. And when your results is strong, you have the jackpot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the 2 presenters for their excellent presentation. I have just few comments about the 2 presentation. The first one, I fully agree with Professor Shafii what he said, because I think that institutions are multidimensional, and I'm afraid I don't like any work using the WDE and the World Bank indicator about the quality of institution. We know how they are building them, and really they don't tell us what is happening in the flow. And especially for the energy transition, because for energy transition, things are moving very fast. And the small change, just small change in the institution can lead to really big change on the field. So my question for the first presenter is, why GCC? When you work in a certain, why you have not considered the work for MENA? Why this specific? For me, the relationship is working worldwide. It's not only that. Why you have focused just on this region? Do you have any motivation? So this is, I would like that you highlight this. For the second presentation, I like, and it's really, I like it. And I'm trying to contribute also on this one. I have one reserve, is about what you have done is energy transition is not green transition. Because the green transition is the ecological transition. There are so many other things to add, so the stakeholders, I think that you have missed several stakeholders. One of them, perhaps I have not to get the idea, but I have worked recently on the role of NGOs in the energy transition. And they have a really key roles in the region. So among them, they are not in your presentation, and perhaps you have considered it differently, but in some countries it works very well, especially for Tunisia. I have made the work for Tunisia, and they have pushed to change the situation. The other one is international pressure. And I think that your discussant has already mentioned this. Let me give you just the example for Morocco here. When the European Union changed the legislation about the CBAM is the cross, immediately there is an interest among the firms in order to go to green. Because if they don't move to green, for example, for the car maker, etc., they cannot be part of the value chain. So it's outside the game, inside the country. So perhaps we need to capture this through, I don't know how. But I found also, I would like to congratulate you about the second result about labor unions. It works very well, and especially in Tunisia, we have this. We know that they are blocking more or less the energy transition. So thank you very much.
We still have time for questions if there are. Are there any other questions? Then I think we can, if there is nothing else, then we can let 5 minutes, we have time, each of the speakers to react.
So first of all, I want to thank you all for the valuable comments and the questions as well. So first of all, I want to respond to the comments of the discussant. Thank you. So for the fact that I talked about that the government effectiveness prioritizing economic expansion and increasing energy consumption is a bad thing. It's in fact in the first state when there is no intervention of the economic policy uncertainty. So it's a bad thing that the government will not take into consideration the sustainable development. But then when there's an increase in energy consumption due to the economic policy uncertainty, this intervention of the government effectiveness to counteract that effect and to decrease the energy consumption and to discourage the excessive use, that's the good thing. That's what I meant. I don't know if I understood you well. Yes. 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 Okay. And for the inclusion of the CO2 emission as an independent variable, I know that it's not an expected thing to do, but also this can be. The results can be explained by, we found that the CO2 emission has an impact on the energy consumption. So this can be explained by the feedback loop between the two variables. So each factor will lead to the other. So we implicitly wanted to test that, and we found it is evident. So that's it. For the second intervention comments, I agree with the wrong use of words. In my work, I mean the moderating role. We tested the moderating role of the institutional factors, not mediating. Maybe I misused the terms. For the use of the panel RDL model, in fact, it was chosen by the type of variables. I started testing the variables, and by the result of my tests, I chose the panel RDL. Maybe it's the same response for your comment. Maybe there's other alternatives that are better in my case, especially for the small. I thought about it after conducting the research, that my panel is not too big, so the PMG estimator may not be the best. So maybe in the future research, we will focus in this manner. For the institutional factors, yes, yes. Yes. So for the institutional factors, we have chosen to work only on 2 institutional factors, in fact, just to see how they may react or what is the difference between them. I agree that it's not the best thing to do. We need to include all the institutional factors, and in fact, in our future research, we aim to include them all by the weighted average, by calculating the weighted average of all the institutional factors. And the fact of the lack of the results in the short term, I explained it in the study by the phase of adjustment of the institutional factors to take into place the policies of the governments and regulatory businesses to take place. It needs some time to adjust. This is an interpretation. It might be, we need to test other model and to see if it's different. That may be the problem with the model. So that's it, and thank you so much again for your comments.
Thanks a lot for the comments. Thanks, Korhan. I'm looking forward to receive your report and look closely to it. Yeah, I mean, I understand that the sample is limited, unfortunately, because I'm dealing only with the Arab countries, and for many countries, there isn't even data on them. I mean, that's why the main focus is like the theoretical model. I'm trying to find as much as possible validation for it, and I try to compensate for it, the case studies. That's why I have so many things, as you said. But I totally understand your point. I had to use imputation, of course. I had to use all the tricks that are possible. There are limitations for sure, but as said, I was trying as much as possible to find evidence. And again, looking forward to read closely your reports. Thanks a lot for the comment. And actually, yeah, definitely they are very important, CSOs and international pressure, but I did this more in the papers in which I have case studies. So I had written already a paper on Tunisia. Sorry if it's a bit of marketing, but like it's internet. You can find it in the Google Scholar. So I focus on these points. For example, the role of NGOs, also because they were defending the local communities, for example, and also the effect of the GIZ and other European and German institutions in pushing this, and yeah, so I accommodated for this, but it was hard a bit to put it in this present paper because it has more empirical part, and it wasn't easy to find an indicator that somehow reflects the power of yeah, NGOs. But thanks a lot.
We still have time, so we can take further
Yeah,
questions.
so I have a suggestion for Hadil, and if any econometrician is here, they could jump in. So with 25 years, I believe you cannot resort to the time series based analysis. You need to have higher T, and with just 5 countries, you cannot use the typical wide panel data models. So maybe you should have a look at the SUR, seemingly unrelated regression. So it requires that the T is larger than the N, but it doesn't specify a limit, you know, like a lower limit on the time series, and it gives you an equation for each country. So I guess this will show the heterogeneity as well between the countries. So I guess this will be a good first option.
Would you still like to respond to that, or it's fine? Okay, okay, okay. Then, okay, then I guess we are done. Thank you very much.